Welcome back. The video today is all about graphing lines. First, I hope you remember from Algebra 1 the definition of slope. The slope represents the steepness or the rise over the run of a graph. So it's represented by the rate of change, the change in y over the change in x. Remember, this symbol is a Greek letter, delta. It means change in. It can be calculated using any 2 points. As a refresher, these are your formulas for slope. Let's practice finding the slope of the line shown. So remember, we can do rise over run or change in y over change in x. That's what we just said. So if you would like to do rise over run, all you need to do is count how far do you go up from one point to another. So this goes up 5, and it goes over 4. So the change in y is equal to 5. The change in x is equal to 4. So the slope is equal to 5 over 4. I'll show you also how to use the formula here. So we want to represent x1 and y1, x2 and y2. So the formula says that we can either do y2 minus y1 or y1 minus y2. It doesn't really matter which way we do it as long as we match it in the denominator. So I'll just do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This gives me 3 plus 2 over 3 plus 1. That's 5 over 4. Notice whether you use rise over run or the slope formula, you should get the same answer. This slope is known as a positive slope. The line, as you see, is going up from left to right, and the answer is a positive number for the slope. Let's do another. We can do rise over run. This time we're moving down, so we're moving down 6 units. So that would be a negative. And we go over 3 units. Usually you want to start at the point to the left and move left to right. This slope, negative 6 over 3, can be reduced to negative 2. We can also calculate it using the formula. So if you would like to do it that way, we could use negative 3 minus 3 over 1 minus negative 2. This would be negative 6 over 1 plus 2, so that's 3. Notice it gives you the same answer either way. This is known as a negative slope. As you look at your graph from left to right, it is moving downward. And the slope is a negative number. Let's look at a horizontal line and a vertical line. So if we tried to calculate this, the rise is actually 0. It does not move up at all. The change in y is 0. The change in x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. However, 0 divided by any number is 0. If you calculated this using the slope formula, you could do negative 3 minus negative 3 over negative 4 minus 3. This is 0 over negative 7. Remember, 0 divided by anything is 0. So the slope of this line, or any horizontal line, is 0. It's classified as a 0 slope. For a vertical line, the change in y for this problem is 5. The change in x, we don't move left to right at all, so the change in x is 0. Remember, division by 0 is undefined. If you try typing in 5 divided by 0 to your calculator, it's going to say error. Anytime you have a vertical line, the slope is undefined. Pause the video and try the practice problem below. Here are the correct answers. I put the type in here. It didn't ask you for the type, but just review that. Okay, let's talk about using this in a real-life problem. So it says a pilot flies a plane from Columbus, Ohio to Orlando, Florida. After half an hour, the plane reaches its cruising altitude and is 620 miles from Orlando. Half an hour later, the plane is 450 miles from Orlando. How far was the plane from Orlando 1.25 hours after takeoff? So let's assume that the plane is moving at a constant speed. I'm going to let x be the number of hours after takeoff. And I'll let y represent the distance from Orlando. So I know that after half an hour, the plane reached the cruising altitude and is 620 miles from Orlando. So my first point that I know is 0.5, 620. After half hour, we're 620 miles from Orlando. Let's make a note here to ourselves. This y value is in miles. Okay, I have another point that I know. I have another half an hour later. Hence, at 1 total hour after takeoff, because a half plus a half makes 1 whole, the plane is 450 miles from Orlando. So my y value here would be 450. Finally, it says, how far was the plane from Orlando 1.25 hours after takeoff? This is asking us how far. Is that an x or y value, do you think? This should be a y value. It's giving us an x value. So we know that the x value is 1.25, and they're basically asking us to find y. What we can do is figure out the slope between the first 2 points. So we'll let this be x1, y1, x2, y2. So we can do 620 minus 450 over 0.5 minus 1. That gives us 170 over negative 1/2. If we divide it out, that gives us negative 340. So we know that the slope is negative 340. Knowing that, we should be able to find out this y value that we're missing. So I'm going to set this up. I know that the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now I know the slope is negative 340, so I'm going to substitute that in. Okay, this time, I'm going to let this be y2, this be y1. Ignore these from the last problem. Whoops. And I'm going to let this be x1, y1. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So now I need to substitute in my values. So y2, I don't know. I'll just leave it as y. y1 is 450. x2 is 1.25. And x1 is 1. Now I should be able to solve this because it's an equation with only one variable. So I have negative 340 equals y minus 450 over 0.25. In order to get rid of dividing by 0.25 I would have to multiply by 0.25 on both sides. Negative 340 times 0.25 is equal to 85, negative 85. So I have negative 85 equals y minus 450. In order to get y by itself, all I need to do is add 450 on both sides. So I get 365 equals y. Since this was a word problem, I want to interpret what this means. Basically, after 1.25 hours, the plane is only 365 miles away from Orlando. Double check that the answer makes sense. The plane should be getting closer to Orlando as it flies for a longer amount of time, which it did. That means our answer makes sense. All right, let's talk about the slopes of parallel lines and perpendicular lines. With parallel lines, they have to have the same slope. For perpendicular lines, the product of their slopes is -1. Basically, what this means is that the slopes have to be opposite and they have to be reciprocals. So, for example, if you had the slope -5/2, the slope perpendicular to that would be +2/5. Let's do a practice problem. It says determine whether line AB and line CD are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. What we need to do is figure out the slopes of each. You can graph them if you'd like, and we can do rise over run. So to figure out the slope of AB, I'll count the rise over the run. I get 6/2. Now you might want to just hold off on reducing that. Let's check the slope of CD. It's important for you to label which slope you're working on so that you don't just have M equals all over the place. All right, so for CD, we can also do rise over run. It goes down 1/3. Now, these slopes are neither opposite reciprocals that we can see now, and they're not equal. So now let's go back and reduce this and see if then we get opposite reciprocals or equal. 6/2 can reduce to 3/1. And now it's obvious that 3/1 and -3/1 are opposite reciprocals. This means that line AB must be perpendicular to line CD. You could probably see that on the graph, but you must check the slopes just to ensure that you're correct. So I know that they're perpendicular because of the slopes of the perpendicular lines postulate that we just learned. All right, try the practice problem below. Use these same instructions that we just used. Here's the correct answer for A. I want you to do B on your own. All right, finally, example 4. Use the slope to graph a line. It says graph the line that contains A, -3, 0, and it's perpendicular to line CD with those 2 points C and D. I already graphed point A and line CD. Make sure you're labeling your points as you're graphing them. And draw the line that it asks you to draw. Let's first find the slope of CD. We'll do rise over run again. It goes up 3/4. That means that the slope perpendicular to line CD, so I'll represent that with perpendicular to CD using this symbol for perpendicular, must be the opposite reciprocal. So since the original slope's positive, I know the perpendicular slope is going to be negative. And then the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So what this means is that I have to go down 4/3. So beginning at point A, I'm going to go down 4/3 and place a point. Now, since I have 2 points, I can connect my 2 points with a line using a straight edge to create the line that is perpendicular to line CD through point A. Pause the video and try the practice problem below. Here's the correct answer. For this one, since you're going up 6/4, you could go up 6/4 to the right and just draw that line. You can also go to the left 6 and down 4, just so that you can make sure that you cross through line QR. All right, for your reflection today, I would like you to look at this problem and see if you can find the mistake. Please explain it in 1 to 2 complete sentences. Have a great weekend.